I can see that. Let me see. We're having that. Okay.
Okay, so we will begin now. Good day to everyone and welcome. Ambassador Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General of the OAS. Ambassador Francisco Lainez, Advisor to the OAS, Assistant Secretary General, in charge of the coordinating office and units of the General Secretariat in member states. Our distinguished panelists, Mr. Augustine Sutherland, Chief of the Kalinago Tribe of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Michelle and Susan Rousseau, cookbook authors and restaurateurs, Chef Orlando Satchel of St. Lucia, Chef Swen Suedo of Suriname, and Dr. Leila Garo of Costa Rica. Distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps and officials from international organizations, academia, and civil society, OAS representatives and colleagues at headquarters and in the national offices, invited guests in our virtual audience. A pleasant good day to all. I am Kendall Belisle, advisor in the Office of the Assistant Secretary General of the OAS, and I will be moderating today's program. I'm pleased to welcome you to another edition of a chat with the OAS in observance of the 6th Inter-American Week for Indigenous Peoples, which is being celebrated by the Organization of American States under the theme Indigenous Youth as Agents of Change for Self-Determination in the Americas, Intergenerational Connections. Inaugurated in 2018 by the OAS Permanent Council through Resolution 1094, this seminal Inter-American Week aims to promote the traditions, the history, the culture, and the societal contributions of Indigenous peoples of the Americas. This week is celebrated annually around August 9th to coincide with the United Nations celebration of the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. A Chat with the OAS virtual series aims to highlight the work of the OAS and provide a space for discussion on salient contemporary topics in the Americas. In that context, in celebration of this year's Inter-American Week for Indigenous Peoples, which is being observed this week from August 7th to the 11th, today's chat will focus on the sub-theme, Intergenerational Connections, the role of gastronomy in preserving time-honored traditional customs and strengthening Indigenous identity. It is irrefutable the role of gastronomy as a powerful tool in preserving and cultivating traditional knowledge. The Americas is a melting pot of traditional Indigenous cuisine spawned from the culinary aptitude of the Indigenous peoples who have graced our hemisphere from antiquity and continue to leave an indelible mark on our hemisphere's development. From maize, beans, to pumpkin seeds, just to name a few, our hemisphere is replete with flavorful and enriching indigenous crops, which throughout history have created insatiable culinary delights. Today, we will receive presentations by our distinguished panelists, including experts and chefs, who will discuss the culinary history of indigenous foods in our region and provide skillful pre-recorded cooking demonstrations. Our program will consist of a video by Ambassador Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General of the OAS, which was delivered at OAS headquarters in Washington, D.C. during the opening ceremony to launch the Inter-American Week this past Monday. Today's program will also include presentations by our distinguished panelists and closing remarks by Ambassador Francisco Lainez. Please note that interpretation services are provided in English and Spanish on this Zoom platform. You may click on the icon shaped as a globe, which is located in the far right corner of your screen, and choose your preferred language. Without further ado, I am pleased to open our program with a video message by Ambassador Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States.
Good morning, everyone. Muy buenos días a todas y todos. Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, distinguished permanent and alternate representatives of observer states, colleagues of the General Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for being here today. As a proud Belizean mestizo, which by its definition entails that I have Mayan ancestry in me, I feel blessed to have been exposed to indigenous cultural influences that have enriched my upbringing. Some of the memories from my childhood and my youth are of the time spent in the rural areas in the north of Belize, and of the time spent with my grandfather and my father, and the things I learned from them. I also vividly remember the tastes of traditional indigenous foods, the customs, the beliefs, and the practices in the rich tapestry of cultures, including Maya, in the north of Belize. Distinguished delegations, this and other countless cherished memories is what we pay homage to here at the House of the Americas as we launch the 6th annual observance of the Inter-American Week for Indigenous Peoples under this year's theme, Indigenous Youth as Agents of Change for Self-Determination in the Americas, Intergenerational Connections. Más adelante les voy a contar un poco más del norte de Belice y cómo era vivir en el mundo maya, en el corazón al sur de Yucatán, en el norte de Belice. This year's commemorative events will be marked by a series of both in-person and virtual activities designed to showcase the transformative role of young people as catalysts for positive change in their societies and to serve as custodians of ancestral knowledge. Through the power of the intergenerational connections, the transfer of indigenous knowledge between an elder, which may be in the form of a loved one or a community leader, and a young person, creates an unyielding and timeless bond that aids in the cultivation and fortification of indigenous people's identity across all our societies. En este contexto, celebramos la Semana Interamericana de este año con un enfoque renovado en la preservación de la cultura e historia de los pueblos indígenas de nuestro hemisferio. Ellos, como portadores originales de estas tierras y verdaderos custodios de su longevidad, merecen nuestro homenaje. Desde la tundra norte de Canadá, pasando por el archipiélago de islas en el Caribe, hasta el punto más astral de Argentina, su fortaleza y perseverancia tenaz, aún en los momentos más oscuros de nuestra historia, han sido precursoras de algunas de las primeras innovaciones y logros en nuestro hemisferio. No podemos negar las terribles atrocidades e injusticias que han ocurrido y a veces continúan afectando a nuestras poblaciones indígenas. Se estima que los pueblos indígenas constituyen casi el 10% de la población de nuestro hemisferio y que el 45% de ellos viven en la pobreza. En muchas de nuestras sociedades, los pueblos indígenas están sobre representados en los datos socioeconómicos relacionados con grupos con acceso limitado a atención médica asequible, educación de calidad, empleo digno y servicios básicos. Nuestros pueblos indígenas son reconocidos por su relación sostenible con el medio ambiente y por lo tanto con nuestro planeta. Son los principales cuidadores de nuestros bosques y entorno natural. Sin embargo, están afectados de manera desproporcionada por el cambio climático. Es nuestro deber buscar medidas para corregir estas desigualdades e injusticias del pasado y trabajar juntos para forjar un futuro de inclusión y aceptación. Ladies and gentlemen, the Organization of American States is committed to providing a platform for the indigenous peoples and to amplify their voices on the causes and interests that are important to their communities. In that connection, and in accordance with the plan of action of the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which urges the organization to, open quotes, to promote their traditions, recognize the value of their languages, transmit their history, and draw attention to their contributions in different fields, end of quotes. The Inter-American Week for Indigenous Peoples was established in February 2018 by the member states of the OAS. Since its inception, my office, in collaboration with member states and other areas of the General Secretariat, have worked tirelessly to celebrate this week each year around August the 9th, in tandem with the observance of the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. Permítame tomar un momento para destacar algunas de las actividades que tendrán lugar aquí en la sede, en nuestros respectivos estados miembros, a través de nuestra red de oficinas nacionales y también en formato virtual para las celebraciones de este año. Primero, a lo largo de la semana, aquí en el Salón de Cultura de Marcus Garvey, se presentará una exhibición organizada por el Museo de Arte de las Américas, en colaboración con la Biblioteca Colón y los Estados miembros, el cual mostrará obras de arte, literatura y proyectos cinematográficos indígenas. Les invitamos a tomarse un tiempo para explorar la colección. 2. El miércoles habrá una sesión especial del Consejo Permanente para conmemorar el Día Internacional de los Pueblos Indígenas del Mundo, que se observará bajo el tema de la semana. 3. El viernes tendremos una edición especial del programa Una charla con la OEA, un evento virtual en vivo que contará con panelistas que abordarán el tema Conexiones intergeneracionales, el papel de la gastronomía en la preservación de las costumbres tradicionales y el fortalecimiento de la identidad indígena. Las oficinas de la Secretaría General en los Estados miembros también organizarán eventos culturales en sus respectivos países. Las actividades virtuales de la semana incluyen el Rincón de Lectura Infantil y Juvenil, una colección de títulos de libros que ilustran el conocimiento y los logros de los pueblos indígenas y promueven las conexiones intergeneracionales y la transmisión del conocimiento ancestral. Además, se destacarán perfiles de personalidades indígenas, particularmente de jóvenes indígenas que están ayudando a cultivar y mantener las tradiciones ancestrales. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's celebration encourages us to reflect on our role as purveyors of ancestral knowledge and recipients of traditions which were transmitted to us by our elders. It is irrefutable that a people without a known history will remain tethered to an unclear path towards self-fulfillment and autonomy. We must continue relying on our fraternal community of elders to share the true history and customs of our respective ancestral identities. The accurate depiction of the history and the current realities of our indigenous populations must be promoted. We look to our elders as a fount for edification and self-awareness, and we challenge our youth to continue fighting for the upliftment of our societies and an inclusive and equitable world. I wish to pause here to say a very special thanks to the member states for their constant support in the planning and execution of the week. As these events are not budgeted for in the regular fund, please allow me to give special recognition to the permanent missions of Canada, Guyana, and the United States for their financial contributions, without which several of the activities of this week would not have been possible. My thanks also to all the secretariats of the General Secretariat who have collaborated with my office, as well as our representatives in the national offices who have organized activities in their respective member states. We value your steadfast support and commitment. Lastly, I would like to recognize the staff in my office who worked tirelessly to prepare for the week's activities, and a very special recognition to Kendall Belial, who was largely responsible for planning most of these activities. There will also be other events, one organized by the Mission of Mexico in the showing of a film during the week. We also have the participation of the cultural presentations later this morning. And so we wish to give them all a very, very warm thank you, our appreciation to you. I told you in the beginning that I would tell you a little about growing up in the north of Belize, in the rural areas. So my father was a school teacher, a primary school teacher. I have two other brothers and two sisters. The three boys are older. And as we were growing up, we were all going to school. But during the summers and sometimes during the weekends, either my grandfather or my father would take us to the farm. And the reason for this was, okay, guys, you will go to school, you will receive an education. But if that does not work out, you will be able to work and provide for yourselves, because none in my family will end up begging or stealing. So we grew up like that. And I remember going to the farm weekends and during the summer. And the things that you learn growing up, I have this vivid memory of preparing the land for planting. At the time, slash and burn was practiced, not so much anymore. It's not very good for the environment. But they would cut the bush, the forest, and wait until it dries up before it is burnt. And it's not as easy as it sounds. There is some knowledge and science that goes to it. You don't just set it on fire. You have to wait until it's properly dried up. And then either my grandfather or my father would take some time to decide where the wind was blowing from. And the reason for that was very simple. If you burn it and it's not ready for burning, or you don't know what you're doing, only the leaves will burn. And then you end up with all the big trunks and the branches, and you have additional work. You have to pick those up, pile them, and set them on fire. So it's double work. So you have to be careful. But that was not all. So after it was ready for burning, and it was decided where the wind was blowing, we would set it on fire. And I always wondered when I was growing up, some of the practices that went along with it. And after we light it on fire, led by my grandfather and my father, we would all start whistling, a special whistle coming from the Mayas, calling for the wind. And last week when I was preparing for this event, I was thinking, is this still done? So I called one of my uncles who lives in the north of Belize. He's a cane farmer. And I asked him, is this still done? And he said, of course, even when we go and burn our cane fields prior to harvesting, we still whistle everybody. And he says, even the migrant workers that come from Guatemala, from El Salvador, all of them also know this particular whistle, which basically is coming down from the Mayas. So if you allow me, I hope I don't get a stage fright. I would like to try it so that you know what I'm talking about. After we light the fire, led by my grandfather, we would all start going. The really amazing part is that it always worked. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my signal honor to launch the 6th Inter-American Week for Indigenous Persons and to thank you for joining us today and virtually. We look forward to your continued support for our activities. Muchas gracias.
We appreciate the remarks of Assistant Secretary General Mendez. I'll tell you this, I couldn't hear the whistle here on the chat, but I'll tell you this, in person, it was very beautiful. So I think there was some technical glitch whereby we couldn't hear it in the chat, but if anyone didn't hear it, but for those who did, we were very moved by his story. It really speaks to the power of intergenerational connections and passing down ancestral knowledge. At this moment, we just want to acknowledge some of the dignitaries that we are aware are currently viewing our chat. We want to recognize the British High Commissioner in St. Lucia, Ambassador Leslie Saunderson. Thank you so much for joining us, as well as all of the other dignitaries and special guests that are viewing our event this afternoon. We will now proceed to the presentations by our distinguished panelists. It is my distinct honor to offer the floor to Mr. Augustine Sutherland, Chief of the Kalinago Tribe of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Chief Sutherland was born in Sandy Bay, a small rural indigenous community in the north of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He is the chief of the Kalinago Tribe of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as a designation he has held for the last 20 years. It was actually Chief Sutherland's great-grandmother who instilled in him the knowledge about his indigenous history, his people's lifestyle, food, and medicinal herbs. Chief Sutherland, you have the floor.
My brigade, and greetings to everyone on the floor. So this is my journey, and I'm glad to be here to speak some of my ancient knowledge that I gathered from my great-great-grandmother over to you. So as I speak, my great-great-grandmother, she was 12 years old, yes, when she passed. And this is how I obtain my knowledge. From school, I will head to the mountain, or summertime, I will be in the mountain with my great-grandparents or my father. And we eat the things that we grow, and most of the things that is wild on the land and in the sea. So to speak some of the things that on the land, I will first start with the wild food that we have. We have a rat of sugar. That is one that we have, and that's our local name that we have for, and it's like honey. We have a screw pine, and screw pine is like a pineapple, and you use it the same like how you will use a pineapple. However, the leaves are very long, like 15 feet long. So you use them to make baskets and fishing bags, or you could use them to make fishing line to fish with as well. You use them to make ropes as well. That's the leaf of the screw pine. And we have that tapioca, and we do the tapioca similar to cassava. We will take that grate and strain, sieve, and we get to make our bread or bakes, and we consume that. Now, if I go to cassava, we do our cassava in different style. One of the things that we do with our cassava that I saw my great-grandparents do with the leaves and the skin of the cassava before you get to the actual cassava. That part of the cassava will make like a medicine for men who is impotent. So you get the leaves and the cassava skin itself, and you dry it and you put it in the mortar, and you will take small portion of that. The cassava itself, when it finished now, the first thing that we know even before cassava bread is something that we call cassava kaki. Cassava kaki done by the same way that you will make a dokuna. It's about 3 inches long and about 1 inch in width, and you wrap it into the banana bush or balenze bush, and you wrap that and you cook that as well, and the spice goes with it as well. That is to do with the cassava. One of the next thing that we do with the cassava, we use it the water, and we use the bitter cassava. The water, we use the water to make our tamale sauce. I think some other islands give different names, like I think it's kashrip or something, I think Guyana call it. But the tamale sauce that we use the bitter cassava to do that, which boil in it, like if you have say 5 gallons, you boil away 3.5 gallons from that, and then what you end up with is something spicy and sweet. You could just add your pepper to it, and then you cool it with your tamale sauce. And you could use the cassava kaki with that. And we have a sikaki as well. That name is sikukumba, but in the old time we call it sikaki, yes. That is not mentioned on my thing, but I just bring in that because that is one of the things that used by ancient people, the indigenous people. So you do the tamale sauce, and it goes with the sikaki, cassava, and the cassava bread. We have again susumba, and the susumba. And let me say here, sometimes people who don't know about these things, like it have, people will say that these things is poisonous, right? It have different historians that's coming in the late that don't know much about indigenous people and indigenous ways and practice. So they will try to tell you these things are poisonous and all of that. So you can get frightened and stop use these things. And this is why indigenous information get lost, because some of the people who grew up with their great-great-grandparents, they don't know about these things. They have the knowledge. So when you mention these things, they say they're poisonous. No, you're somebody who get these information from your ancestors, your great-grandparents. You know that it is the truth that you could eat these things, that you could use them as medicine. So the susumba that we have here now, many times I have that problem with people saying it's poisonous. No, I would have done that because I eat too much susumba. And you use this susumba, you cook your food, you put it on top there. It's like a balenze, eggplant, you name it, that's some of the names. And you put that on your food, simmer it down, it's well good. It has plenty of nutritious value. Again, for pain, the leaves, you will take the leaves and put that over heat, and it will help to soothe your pain for a little. So that is to do with some of the susumba. We have the Inca nut. The Inca nut is an indigenous food as well that use, and up to this day, we still use that nut. You bake it, you could dry it, you could make a milk with it as well to go with your farine and what's not. So again, this as a child growing up going to the mountain, this scared me, because when it's ripe and dry and it let go from the branch of the tree and dropped on the ground, you will hear like somebody walking behind you. When you turn around, there's nobody. So before I even get to know this as a youngster coming up, it used to frighten me until my great-grandparents told me about it and started to eat it. Okay, so that is to do with the Inca nuts, and you could have many more benefits from that Inca nuts, make butter and oil. So now I will tell you about the oil that's come from it as well. We have and the cassava that we talk about, we have at least 4 or 5 different species of cassava to go back there. So one species of the cassava don't eat because you could eat it, but it's too stringy. And that people have it as ornamental plants in their house and other places. They have that. Ground power, we have a ground power root that we use as medicine as well. And it's used, you could just eat it so, but you could make it into a powder. And it's for like if you lack iron, but different to that, you can cook it just as a main staple in your food. And yes, when you see them lights, if you harvest them and the lights, they expire already, they're no good. The leaves, you could use the leaves to make your tea, you could dry them, or you can use them green as well. That is to do with the ground power. And if we go back to our next, let me go back to the sea now, because that's, I think I do enough there with the land. So I will go to the sea and give you some little details about the sea creatures that we have there. Now I will say, we have a whelks that we call tobacco whelks. Tobacco whelks is used many centuries ago by the Roman priests, high priests in Rome from that earlier days. And the Kalinago people use that same whelks as well to color their clothes, to color their craft, and yes, it's edible as well. So what happened, as I go back and say again, today you will find some historian will tell you, no, they're poisonous or they have no taste. I will say I would have done that from tobacco whelks as well, because I eat a lot of them with coconut milk and so forth, and cassava, and it's very nice. Now, the tobacco whelks, if you pick it, it have this scent like a tobacco or a funny scent, and it stay in your fingers, and that stain will stay on your finger for days, if not weeks. That same color, you put it on your clothes or your craft that you're making with the bamboo craft or the manico pine or wild pine leaves, you soak them inside that to get your color. The sea cucumber as well, which we call sea kaki, is just like the cassava kaki. These are things that go by with the same cassava bread, all these things you make them, and the whelks, the tobacco whelks, the sea kaki, all of these come together to make a dish. The ruku, go for flavor and color of these things. The ruku, we use the ruku as well for help and pressure in the eyes. So you could just put them behind your eyes or under the eyes, mixed with some oils. And the seed, you can get little bits of oil from the seed as well. You have to do that good. And these come as medicine when come to different problems, bruise or ash, rash, or different skin problem. You can use them there to help your body recuperate. If we could go back to the whelks. Now with the whelks, you will find it more, unless not in the deep water, but you find it on close by shore on the rock. You will find that whelks there. We go to the same manicupine, yeah, it give we that thread to make our clothes as well. If I go back there, we have medicinal plants as well. We have the rata sugar, which I speak about, the seeds in it to make tea. My grandfather used to take them and grind the seed, crush the seed together, boil it, and yes, it tastes just like coffee. So when we mention dandelion, this is something that my great-grandfather and grandmother call coffee. And now I hear a similar thing about the dandelion. So this is similar to the dandelion, the roots and the seed used for making tea. And you could use the sap itself from the fruit itself as a sugar, or you can eat it so it's like tastes like honey. The leaves as well, you could use it for bathing, and it's very good for moving rash from the skin, or lots of skin rash that you might get. It will dry them up. It's good for animals as well, to bathe animals, and it's nutritious as well. You could eat the leaves. You could cut them up like salads. It's very beneficial as well. Plenty iron. We get back to our cassava. If we go back to the cassava, we have the cassava, the bitter cassava, and you could make at least 5 different species, types of cassava bread. One is with pepper, and you will find all the spice. So you have a spicy cassava to go with your tamale sauce as well. We have, again, in plants that is very good, and it's something like that we wear on our neck as Kalinago people. Job says seed. Now this seed is a nut as well, and many people don't know that, and you will hear some historian will tell you that they poisonous. But if you don't know, the indigenous people who have life, you will say that. Now, you put these Job says seed to soak in water like you soak in dried peas, and you pound them, and the harder shell remove. And after the harder shell remove, you take them and you soak them again, and then you pound them in a mortar, and then you cook them, or you make your porridge with these things. You put your molasses, you could, or you put your honey, or you put your brown sugar to get a little sweet from it. Now it's similar to barley. If you know barley, it's similar to barley. It has similar benefit. I think the some part in India, I think, we're still using them. In the Caribbean, I don't think nobody uses them, but we use them. The Kalinago and St. Vincent family use them. I take this here about 3 weeks ago. I eat this here. Not often, but it's very delicious when it comes to things like making porridge with it. Similar to the tapioca. The tapioca porridge is similarity in this as like the tapioca. So we go to the ginger lily. The ginger lily used as medicine as well. Some people call it river lily, but it's a family of the ginger root. And this have lots of benefits, especially when you come to the essential oil. Essential oil is ancient medication. So when we deal with ancient medication, you go back to if you see it have a yellow flowers, the yellow flowers and the root part of it, you will steam distillation, these things, and it will then give you hydrosol, and then from hydrosol you will get essential oil. And essential oil, you will use it for problem like yas that can't get rid of, or people who have sugar. It will help to move that yas because of sugar, heal that up good, but you will still remain with the sugar. But it do good work on the epidermis and the skin and the muscle tissue. It is very good for that. Speaking from my ancestors, so to speak, and I speak the same way. I see it work, and that is why I never see it work. I see it work that way. They work very good. So that is to do with the ginger lily. However, we have different plants that we extract essential oil as well from. Some of our plants we use sap from some of our plants to make to put on our arrows as poisonous substance, and these are things that we do. And some of the sap you will find from poisonous plant. In St. Vincent, we have much of poisonous plant in St. Vincent. We have St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have at least 5 different plants that we know here, and we have about 2,000 medicinal plants that we use, or 1,000 edible plants that I get from my great-grandparents. So to sum up, I think that I give you some knowledge and you could rotate on them and see what happened. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Chief Sutherland, for that very enlightening presentation about the medicinal purposes of the indigenous plants that the Kalinago people have consumed for generations. I am now pleased to present Michelle and Susan Rousseau, Jamaican sisters and restaurateurs who have established their culinary reputation through their artful use of local ingredients, bespoke culinary events, heritage dining concepts, and food writing. I offer the floor to Michelle and Susan Rousseau to provide a culinary history of indigenous foods in our region. You may proceed.
Thank you, and all protocols observed. Thank you for having us. We're going to speak a bit about our perspective of the cuisine from the Caribbean region specifically, and the areas where we have done the most of our research. So firstly, we begin by speaking about it as a personal story. For us, it always has been a personal story. This is what has informed so much of our exploration into the history and culture of our region. So I will start, and we will go between Michelle and I as we share the presentation. Vibrant, wise, diverse, the women of the Caribbean are the wheels on which our society turns. From slavery through emancipation to modern day, our female ancestors have nourished their families and communities. They cooked to survive. Their meals are laced with the aroma of fortitude, the memory of pain, the spicy taste of resilience, and a legacy of love that continues to nurture us to this day. We were blessed to grow up surrounded by wonderful cooks, and our childhoods were filled with meals at the tables of our female relatives and caregivers, all of whom served delicious food. So when we first started our food business 27 years ago, our desire was to replicate the experience of living and dining in the Caribbean, where food is as diverse and varied as the hands that prepare it, from island to island, from street to street, and from home to home. As we started to shape our culinary identity in the professional food world, we wanted to be modern-day wisdom keepers, storytellers, guardians of our culture. But we faced a contradiction. For too long, our female ancestors had been forgotten, unacknowledged, and unseen. We had not told their stories because we did not know their stories. And so began a lifelong quest to learn as much as possible about the wise women who cooked and cared for so many for so long. How did they live? What did they cook? How did they cook? To fulfill this quest, we became passionate historians. Along the way, we uncovered an irrefutable truth. Knowing and understanding your heritage and the truth of your ancestors is essential to claim your place in the now. Our great-grandmother, Martha Matilda Briggs, is one of those ancestors. A well-known restaurant and tavern owner from the 1930s in Jamaica, her story is a familiar narrative of a powerful Black woman who survived, fed, and clothed her family through her culinary skills. She's not alone. Matriarchs and female entrepreneurs like her are the backbone of Caribbean society. What we heard mostly about Ma Briggs, as she was known by the family, came from older family members who relished in childhood food memories eaten from her hand. Her signature crisp crust patties, plantain tarts, infamous Easter buns, and prune ice cream. We all have ancestral stories. Sometimes they are tantalizing tales told by relatives, or they may be collective stories shared by a community. But we also have a personal story that is created in this lifetime and built around our own experiences and memories, one that connects the dots between the past and the present. Our personal food story starts in 1977, at the ages of 5 and 7, when we moved from Kingston, Jamaica to Port of Spain, Trinidad. Here, we were insiders and outsiders at the same time, occupying a vastly different world that was strangely familiar.
In Trinidad, we became exposed to an entirely new kind of Caribbean cuisine, encountering ingredients and flavors that were revelatory, dynamic, and exciting. This culinary discovery awakened our palate, and we began to understand the juxtaposition of the refined and the rustic that is so typical in our region.
Our daily trek home from school always included street food from our favorite vendors: tart, spicy tamarind balls, crispy, salty chana, pepper mango, pickled pomsite, snow cones from the savannah smothered with fruit syrup and condensed milk. These foods were fantastic. The layers of flavor, mind-blowing, and we gobbled them up.
While we were eating these wonderful foods on the street, our mother regularly prepared classic Jamaican dishes to remind us of home, like escovitch fish, oxtail and broad beans, ackee and saltfish. Our favorite Sunday suppers were built around British classics like roast lamb and potatoes with mint sauce or roast beef with Yorkshire pudding. We also enjoyed regional dishes at the tables of our new Caribbean friends, like Trinidadian pilau, Guyanese pepper pot made with cassareep. These dining experiences, prepared by home cooks, helped us to understand the connection to cooking as a way to show love, forge a sense of belonging, welcome strangers, create memories, and celebrate our diverse heritage. Our story of migration is not uncommon in the region, but before we get there, let's take a quick journey back in time to look at our history.
It is very difficult to tell a comprehensive chronological history of the Caribbean as one identity, as it comprises of such a wide range of territories, each with its own unique historical, social, cultural, racial, political, and culinary narrative that is heavily influenced by the world power that colonized that particular place. The islands of the Caribbean Sea are not the only territories that make up the region. The mainland territories of Belize, Suriname, Guyana, and French Guyana also form a part of the Caribbean, making it topographically and linguistically diverse. The main languages spoken are English, French, Spanish, and Dutch, but a plethora of dialects like Creole and Patois make up the local vernacular.
Despite having a shared history of colonization and slavery, diversity is still a defining aspect of the Caribbean. Slavery was abolished in the British Caribbean in 1834, the French in 1848, the Dutch in 1863, and in Cuba in 1886. While most territories became independent in the 1960s and 1970s, some became independent much later, some much earlier, and some others are still, even now, semi-dependent. The common story of the region, therefore, is one of new societies forged by a series of forced and voluntary migrations. These migrations have created a unique and diverse Caribbean identity that cannot be held in a box.
One way to define Caribbean identity, however, is through our food. Throughout the centuries, the region has embraced many cultures and races, adopting and adapting the traditions, cuisine, and cultural norms of new residents. In turn, these new residents also adopted the culinary habits of the local community, learning to combine the cuisine they brought with them with that of the place they now called home.
Even though each island has its own gastronomy, a deeper exploration reveals dining habits and ingredients that are shared across the region. Tracing how these ingredients move through the supply chain from land, river, and sea to a cook's kitchen and finally to the table reveals much about a place. To demonstrate, let's take a quick look at our homeland, Jamaica, and the numerous cultural influences that appear in our cuisine.
In the Tainos of Jamaica, who are original indigenous people, not only gave us our name, Land of Wood and Water, but they also gave us chili pepper, cassava, sweet potato, and more importantly, the barbacoa, a precursor to Jamaica's signature wooden jerk pit. The Spanish brought citrus, coconut, banana, and grapes, but they also introduced sugarcane, which was pivotal, cattle, goats, and pigs. The British exported rum and molasses in exchange for flour and pickled northern fish like salt cod, mackerel, and herring, all parts of the daily diet. But they also introduced breadfruit, mangoes, and coffee. Easter bun, Christmas pudding, trifle, marmalade, and Jamaican beef patties is also a legacy of the Brits. Our African neighbors came with prized foods such as ackee, yam, cocoa, and okra. The Chinese brought soy sauce, dried noodles, and 5-spice powder. And East Indians, well known for their curry dishes, gave us the infamous Jamaican curry goat.
Even though each community that came possessed their own culinary habits, all were faced with a limited selection of ingredients. So everyone on the island ended up eating different interpretations of the same foods. The final dish was determined by 3 main factors: the dominant colonizing or cultural influence, 2, availability of equipment and cooking facilities, and 3, the variety of ingredients available to cook. Rudimentary kitchen facilities, rustic utensils, and lack of time made meal preparation simple and efficient, often centered around a single or shared pot on an open flame, resulting with 2 different main types of nourishment. Hearty one-pot stews like soups, stews, porridges, or paps. Typical for this type of dish would be Grenadian oil down, Jamaican stew peas, or Trini-Callaloo, or simple open flame roasted meals, fried meals, or boiled starches with salted or fresh meat and seafood. Examples would include bacon shark from Trinidad, doubles, escovitch fish and bami from here in Jamaica, roast yam and saltfish from here in Jamaica.
Much of the traditional cookware used to prepare these meals are still in use today in the Caribbean. Utensils like the Dutch pot continue to be popular, while others like the yaba are considered to be more like heirlooms. Although we no longer cook over open wood fires, many households still use a traditional coal stove to prepare daily meals, and all roadside food is fire. Despite the addition of a thriving restaurant and hospitality industry, the diet in the region is largely unchanged. Traditional dishes of our past are still preferred in everyday dining in all homes.
But as populations disperse, traditions disappear, being lost to a homogenized culinary culture built around the global brands, trendy ingredients, and highly processed food. Without the right context, it's easy for the younger generation to forget all of the foods we eat originate from a culture and carry with them their own legacy, their own history, and a story of their own.
Our story in the Caribbean is an oral one, birthed from memory with culinary techniques passed from hand to hand and generation to generation. This cannot be replicated in a written recipe, but documented recipes preserve tradition and culture. And so we need both. As our people have migrated around the globe, the opportunity for them to learn at the hands of an elder in the traditional way have diminished. And without this, the preservation of indigenous cultures and practices are more and more in jeopardy every day. Techniques, ingredients, dishes, and traditional preparations are rapidly disappearing from the daily diet.
The modern world need not exist at the expense of tradition. By normalizing or even rebranding some of our culinary traditions and incorporating them into the experiences across industries like sustainable travel, heritage tourism, fine dining, and healthy food production, we can preserve indigenous practices and the communities they come from, proving that a balance between productivity, profit, and preservation is indeed possible.
Identity matters, but it is not a fixed variable. It is an ever-evolving state of consciousness, and as the world changes, so do the ways in which we self-identify. The preservation and evolution of identity comes from telling our personal stories. Every voice, every memory, and every meal counts.
Food has the power to unite us through a web of remembrances, experiences, and flavors. By sharing our food stories, we share culture, we encourage diversity, we teach about heritage and community, and we celebrate the sacrifices made by so many in order that we may have a better life.
If we know one thing for sure, it's that you can't know where you're going unless you know where you come from. And you certainly can't create real impact or inspire change in your community without knowing the truth of your past or understanding your own legacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle and Susan Rousseau, for that very informative presentation and such a clear overview of the indigenous origins of so many of the foods that are consumed in the Caribbean, and for re-emphasizing the importance of knowing your past so that you can understand where your history and your future will take you. We will now proceed to the presentation and cooking demonstrations by our chefs from Costa Rica, St. Lucia, and Suriname. We will begin with a presentation by Dr. Leila Garo Valverde of Costa Rica and the Boruca indigenous community. Dr. Garo is a nurse midwife by profession. She is married to the Boruca indigenous leader, Jose Carlos Morales. Much of her life has been dedicated to working with and for indigenous peoples. I offer the floor to Dr. Garo for a brief introduction, and then we will show her video. Dr. Garo, you have the floor. Tiene la palabra.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Para mí es un honor estar acá y felicitarles por la iniciativa, porque además de la tradición, la comida y la juventud, son varias cosas que conforman un elemento esencial para trascender en toda esta herencia que nos dejan los pueblos indígenas. Pues Costa Rica tiene 8 pueblos indígenas. Yo en el video solo me refiero a una actividad que estábamos haciendo en ese momento en el pueblo indígena de Boruca, de donde es oriundo mi esposo y de donde he aprendido muchísimo de la tradición que queremos compartir con ustedes, con la esperanza de que esto se siga fortaleciendo y que a través de los chefs, estos chefs comprometidos que puedan realmente representar lo que esa riqueza de la herencia indígena, pues que se pueda proyectar y también que las nuevas generaciones lo sigan manteniendo, porque a veces con tristeza vemos que mucho se nos va perdiendo. Y fue algo que logré recoger en el libro, donde participaron personas mayores que muchas de ellas ya no están, y si no se hubiera recogido esa información, se nos hubiera ido con ellos. Yo insto a las nuevas generaciones, insto también a las instituciones a seguir adelante con esto, porque ese tipo de comida que es sostenible, que es sana, es la que debemos conservar, y es la herencia que nos dejan los pueblos indígenas, que nos mantienen los pueblos tradicionales, y tenemos que ponerlo en evidencia, porque aquello que no se usa, la naturaleza la desecha. Yo agradezco esta oportunidad y a continuación pues pueden ver el video que hicimos allá con mujeres indígenas y con chefs no indígenas comprometidos en mantener estas tradiciones. Gracias.
Podemos vivir sin ropa, sin casa, sin una serie de cosas, pero no sin comida. Mi nombre es Leila Garro, soy de formación obstétrica. He trabajado en diferentes áreas, no solo en la parte de la enfermería, la obstetricia, sino también que la vida me ha llevado a otras áreas, a trabajar en la educación, formando el primer nivel de atención en salud, pero también por mi relación posterior de casarme con un indígena, y no solo por eso, sino porque ya estaba en el campo indígena, en voluntariados, se convirtió en una pasión al descubrir una riqueza tan grande que el resto de la población creo que ignoramos o ignorábamos, ¿verdad? Y entonces, así es que puedo decir que de formación es en el área de enfermería, pero de pasión ha sido todo lo que el rescate, o más bien no el rescate, sino la visualización de la riqueza que existe en los pueblos rurales y también específicamente en los pueblos indígenas de Costa Rica. Y creo que esa gastronomía sostenible es la que yo encontré en los pueblos indígenas, específicamente en Boruca, y me llevó a escribir el libro Saberes y Sabores de Boruca, que en un principio era, lo concebí como mantener las recetas de familia, pero fui viendo a la par de las recetas o de las comidas una serie de aspectos tan importantes y que yo notaba que ya nos estaba pasando a las nuevas generaciones, que ya se tenía, algunos sentían como pena de decir esto, como me decía mi suegra, esto es comida de indios. Y yo le decía, pero es deliciosa, es sana, es nutritiva, pero siempre sentía que tal vez no era lo que la gente estaba esperando. Y por otro lado vi que siendo todas los pueblos indígenas de Costa Rica, su transmisión es oral. Ninguna de las lenguas se escribe. Y entonces era importante rescatar esas de voces, con las voces de ellos mismos, toda esa riqueza en la que participaban no solo mujeres, sino también hombres y niños. Aquello que yo creía que iba a ser un recetario de familia, al ver tanta riqueza y al ver también que había la disponibilidad de la gente mayor y definitivamente la comida es esencial para el ser humano, pero esa comida concebida también, no solo aislada, no solo los ingredientes, sino todo lo que conlleva eso. Y los pueblos indígenas nos pueden enseñar muchísimo y nos han enseñado muchísimo. Estamos aquí, que tampoco lo había dicho, estamos aquí en la finca educativa Cantán. Esta finca hace honor a su nombre, es una forma de educar, pero educar con conciencia, de educar con esa cosmovisión. Y aquí lo hemos hecho con jóvenes, con niños, con indígenas, o sea, no, jóvenes y niños indígenas, pero también gente no indígena que tiene esa sensibilidad. Y en este momento tenemos un grupo de chefs que es gente que respeta, es que realmente meterlos en la cultura, meterlos casi que en los ojos, como si en los ojos y en la piel de lo que se siente estar en un pueblo indígena, donde hay respeto no solo a la naturaleza, sino a las tradiciones, a esa cosmovisión, y es justamente lo que este grupo ha hecho, de entender todo eso y de vivirlo, porque no es aprender a hacer un plato que voy a hacer en un restaurante, es sentir todo eso y transmitirlo a través de la comida. La comida que tiene los elementos vivos, que son los alimentos, también debe llevar ese concepto de esa cosmovisión. Y es lo que hemos tratado de hacer acá. Y sé que la gente que ha venido es gente muy, muy valiosa en ese sentido y que tiene esa sensibilidad, esa apertura de también de compartir con ese respeto.
Hemos disfrutado bastante, hemos conocido y sobre todo hemos generado conciencia. Muchas veces no tenemos acceso a esto. Pasa infinidad de veces de que podemos llevar cursos con grandes academias, con grandes escuelas culinarias, pero no aprendemos lo esencial, que es nuestra cultura y nuestros orígenes en términos gastronómicos. Entonces yo creo que esto es una gran oportunidad para todos los profesionales en la parte gastronómica de poder realmente conocer cuáles son nuestros orígenes y raíces. Yo creo que nosotros definitivamente los cocineros y los profesionales en la parte culinaria somos embajadores de la gastronomía de Costa Rica y necesitamos explorar, investigar y lanzar al mundo lo que la gastronomía de Costa Rica tiene para dar, que es muchísimo. Así como tenemos una variedad increíble de flora y fauna y somos un país sumamente diverso, lo mismo pasa con la parte gastronómica, con frutas, las verduras, lo que podemos encontrarnos en todo el país. Y hay una historia que no ha sido contada hasta el momento, que es desde la parte aborigen, que es necesario explotarla y que la gente lo conozca para crear conciencia, para crear estima también en lo que representa realmente el buen comer aquí en esta área de Latinoamérica también.
Realmente es una experiencia que valoro mucho. Me ha conectado espiritualmente con la madre naturaleza, así mismo me ha conectado con personas que tienen pensamientos muy similares a los míos con respecto a cómo hay que abordar la gastronomía, y realmente eso me enriquece y me satisface saber que no estoy solo en esta lucha. Es ese típico de cuando uno se siente, ay, es que yo solo. No, en realidad por muchas partes del país hay muchas otras personas que también están con un pensamiento similar, y eso favorece a que este tipo de experiencias se desarrollen y crezcan.
Tenemos 2 maestras que tienen esos elementos que yo les vi en sus mayores, porque Ana, su abuela, fue una de las informantes. Daisy también ha sido una de las informantes de ese libro, y es gente que comparte y a las que yo respeto mucho, porque aprendieron también directamente de sus familiares, de los mayores, y saben reconocer las cosas que se producen, pero también tienen esa sensibilidad y esa apertura para compartir ese conocimiento con otras personas.
Ahorita no quiero que pase lo que pasó conmigo, porque mi mamá era partera y sabía muchos medicamentos medicinales, ¿verdad? Muchas plantas. No sé, no tuve aquella visión de aprendérmelas todas. Entonces yo veo que es algo que si se murió la persona que sabe, ahí termina. Me siento muy privilegiada de que me hayan tomado en cuenta para estar hoy aquí, compartiendo en este grupo de muchachos de gastronomía. Me alegro de poder transmitir lo poco que uno sabe. Uno dice poco, que tal vez para muchos es bastante, pero como uno está acostumbrado a ver las cosas, a vivirlas, a tenerlas, a hacerlas, entonces uno lo ve como algo común, algo normal, y digamos que tal vez no tenga tanta importancia.
La poca experiencia que tengo, la dicha que he tenido de compartir con otras personas de diferentes países, porque he tenido el privilegio, han convivido conmigo por una semana, 2 semanas, y es algo que uno les da en su momento dado, uno les explica y uno nota cómo les gusta. Y así he ido aprendiendo lo valioso que tenemos. Y creo que por eso también mis hijas lo valoran más, porque muchas veces tenemos un conocimiento, pero por miedo, no lo queremos compartir, pero hay veces que notamos que al compartirlo tiene otra idea. Se fortalece mucho más.
Mis propios padres me dieron una crianza en el que nunca negara quién era, porque había pasado, uno escuchaba que había muchos de la comunidad que cuando salían negaban quién eran, de aquí de Boruca. Entonces, ella misma también me criaron así. El tener el acompañamiento de doña Leila y José Carlos también fue como otro impulso más de no negar quién es uno. Es feo como uno indígena ver en internet, más ahora las redes sociales, que ponen este platillo a otro nombre, que le fue de otro lado o algo así, y uno sabe, es mentira, es de aquí, no es cierto. Entonces es feo, es un poco como incómodo, ¿verdad? Porque al mismo tiempo no puedes como ir y pelearlo de cierta forma. Hasta cierto punto no se puede pelear muchas cosas, otras sí. Entonces eso sería como lo primordial, que lo mantengan, y ya de ahí pues sé que no les va a salir igualito, ¿verdad? Desearan que les salga igual, pero no. En el ámbito de comidas indígenas, y creo que es como a nivel mundial, no conozco mucho, pero lo que uno ve en documentales también es muy nuestro, muy que se pasa de boca a boca, y nada de medidas, al ojo, y así como mi mamá me enseñó, al ojo o toque, sepa cómo es la sensación, así uno va y lo pasa a la generación, entonces no hay medidas, pero que lo sepan darle dedicación y amor. y que le agreguen algo de creatividad. No hay de más. Para algo son chef, para algo se dedicaron a esa rama. Entonces no está de más que le den su propio toque, pero manteniendo el lugar donde nació.
Muchos de los ingredientes de las comidas tradicionales se mantienen en su propio nombre. Porque el idioma, el último lugar que se pierde es en la comida. Y eso dice muchísimo, porque es tan importante que aunque haya habido presión para que pierdan sus idiomas, para asimilarse o para integrarse, siguen manteniendo los nombres originarios. Hay algunos que prácticamente no tienen traducción. Entonces, es muy importante, es importantísimo la comida, definitivamente.
We thank Dr. Garo for her laudable work and noteworthy contributions to the Baruca community in Costa Rica, and for ensuring that the ancestral knowledge of the peoples is preserved through gastronomy and the foods that they prepare there. Thank you so much. I am now privileged to present Chef Orlando Satchel from St. Lucia. He is known for utilizing locally sourced ingredients such as ground provisions, vegetables, fruits, seasonings, and herbs in the preparation of his dishes. Chef Shuttle, I offer you the floor to give a brief introduction, and then you may end your video.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. First of all, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to showcase what we call indigenous cuisine and foods. My name is Orlando Satchel. I have a good linkage of the Caribbean, being Jamaican, Barbadian, born in England, live in St. Lucia. So I am whatever we call it, a bouillon. But ultimately, my story really comes coming from the UK. Try to understand the value of what Caribbean cuisine is all about, you know. It's interesting, I mean, listen to all the conversations there. What is indigenous cuisine? What do we call indigenous? You know, indigenous is what we represent as the people, but how we present. And for me as a chef, I really want to try to connect the links. Coming from the UK, cooked for many years, I realized our cuisine, what we call indigenous, has not been highlighted. So what I've been trying to do for the last 20, 30 years now is try to take what I call our indigenous cuisine and then take our indigenous cuisine and make it into a more of a gourmet. So from food to cuisine. Food is what you eat because you're hungry, you really want to try the experience. Cuisine is an experience that you share. And so my vision is about sharing the experience, but ultimately, critically, not losing the essence of our indigenous flavors. And that's critically important. Like I said before, I mean, up you're going to see the dish that I prepared is a very simple idea, using breadfruit, mai, I think like salted fish to combine presentation. Because unfortunately, today's global market, while they may be in touch with indigenous and eating great food, first and foremost, people buy with their eyes. And the eyes is what catches the imagination. Usually when you go out and try something which is not very presentable sometimes because a friend takes you out and goes, try it. You know what I'm saying? And that tends to be the conversation that I realize. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really have people do tend to try things when a friend or a family member says, you know what, I'm taking it to a local market, I'm taking it somewhere, try this for the first time. So what has happened globally now, gastronomy has become a visual, it's become a creative ideas. So my vision really is about trying to take my mom's from Jamaica influence of Docanu, and from, you know, here in St. Lucia, we have Christopher, which we call chocho in Jamaica. You know, they call it chayote in South America. You know, all these things which are definitely part of the Caribbean. I think living here in St. Lucia for a number of years now, we've taken those traditional flavors and making what I call sexy, if I can say that, make it look more, you know, presentational. Presently at my restaurant, there is no menu. You come to my restaurant, we give you the price, we actually give a diabetic situation, and then we cook for you. And we cook for you a 5-course tasting menu, which we create from our local farmers. I go to the farm every day, speak to the farmers, we get what's fresh available, and we'll create a menu using 95% local ingredients. So that is really where Orlando's and St. Lucia, we're trying to do here in St. Lucia. So I hope you'll enjoy the video. And, you know, again, look at what we can do, because I'm very excited about the idea of indigenous, but I'm also critically important that we elevate it to the level that it gets respectability and affordability as well. Because at the moment, you know, no one's paying for it just yet. You know what I'm saying? We need people to pay for it at the right value. At the moment, they're saying, oh, you know, we go down the road, we get a little bit of chicken, a little bit of rice, but yet you put a nice bit of, let's say, a bit of steak on a plate with a bit of mash, and you charge it 25 US or 40 US. So somehow we need to get our cuisine to a level where it becomes presentable and affordable, but ultimately a value as well. So I'm hoping that's what we can try and do with this Indigenous Week. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. And if you have a chance to see the video, we'll watch the video. Thank you. Welcome, Indigenous people from around the world. My name is Chef Orlando Satchel. I'm here in St. Lucia. I've been a chef now for over 30-40 years. My mission is to bring Caribbean cuisine and Indigenous cuisine to the rest of the world. I'm here in St. Lucia in my wonderful restaurant, called Orlando's Restaurant, and our aim is to use local and Indigenous flavors. You know, the challenges for us is to make people appreciate coming to the islands and coming to an island like St. Lucia and discovering ingredients. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy the experience today. With OAS, this is a real opportunity for us to gather together as a people, as Indigenous people, and show what we can do to promote each other's cuisine. Today's dish is very simple. It's going to be a roasted breadfruit filled with a my fish broth, and topped with salted fish and green banana. The salted fish and green banana is critically important because that is our national dish of St. Lucia. What we're going to do with it today is use it as a salsa. So we're going to saute the salted fish and then mix with green banana and topped onto the mai. I'm hoping that this week is a great opportunity for us to show what we can do with our Indigenous cuisine around the world. I want to thank OAS for this opportunity to showcase our cuisine. And I'm hoping this week will be a great opportunity to come together and bring cuisine of Indigenous people together. So we're going to give a little flavor to them. Today, I'm going to show you how to do a very simple concept. We have breadfruit. And we're going to use breadfruit because I love the idea. It's sitting around right now. We pre-cook the breadfruit there. What we're going to do is we're going to put our breadfruit, we pre-cook it to kind of soft. We're going to put it directly on an open fire. Now, you're looking and wondering, what is that we're using there? This is actually what we call a coal pot. The coal pot is very much a big tradition of St. Lucia, Eastern Caribbean. It's made of clay. It's used as a stove. So you can, what happens, you put your charcoal on top. And then, of course, as it begins to come down below. So we're going to roast our breadfruit there on that for a few minutes and get a nice chocolate flavor there. Usually with your coal pots, you would serve your pots, your food in these wonderful pots. So we're going to do a wonderful broth, like a fish broth with our salted fish on top. But first of all, we're going to roast our breadfruit for a few minutes. Okay, so again, when we roast our breadfruit, it's critically important to make sure you kind of roast it in a way that you capture the essence of the smoke. We've been sitting on our roasting now for around 10-15 minutes. And get a wonderful barbecue smoky flavor. That's what I serve our fish broth inside. We have our wonderful coal pot. You can see it's a beautiful, sexy coal pot. Take out breadfruit is there beautifully done. Oh, no. Guys, if you were here, you'd be eating breadfruit like no problem, okay? Smoke is
absolutely on point. Roasting an open fire gives it a whole different dimension to traditional bread foods. Again, think outside the box. Bread food can be done in so many ways. It's a very starchy product, so you can actually have breadfruit soup, breadfruit salads. You can do some breadfruit cake. You can boil the breadfruit and mash it and add fish to it. You can do soup with breadfruit. This is very traditional, also traditional, local way. But of course, there's much ways you can do breadfruit. Now what we're going to do, we're going to start the pan on the fire. That pan needs to get really hot. We need a pan to get really, really hot. We're going to do our broth inside there in a few minutes. So let's get a pan going really hot, and we're going to get back to that side. When the pan is getting hot, we have our breadfruit, which I think you're going to find pretty amazing. Our breadfruit there is sitting there, got a beautiful smoky flavor there. You take a knife. Please color it, take a knife and burn in the back of your breadfruit. So you just take out the see your flavor system, something unique. Smoke gets in your eyes because you are actually cooking with enough smoke flavor. Then your breadfruit outer layer. That's all. This is crazy. They did live conversations, so we showed it off. Right there. We're going to take a knife and just chill inside. You're going to create almost like a vehicle. For me, it's all about vehicles, it's all about these simple vehicles. So take this chill inside our breadfruit there. Make sure you keep it nice and clean, so you get a nice, simple breadfruit cup. A breadfruit bowl. Move that a little. Have it now. Beautiful breadfruit bowl. A wonderful grandma's cup, but of course, each one carries grandma's essence of love, where the ingredients are bay leaf, local bay leaf. We have wonderful onions. We have seasoning peppers. These are not hot, these are flavored peppers, seasoned. We have chives, which known people as spring onions, chives. We have an infusion of red onions. We have kale. Of course, one of my number one herbs for me, turmeric. Wonderful. Local carrots. Some plantain. Some sweet potato. Okra. Ladies' fingers, you guys in Jamaica. With tomatoes. Of course, some fresh spinach. Some, and have some thyme, island thyme, which the best. Okay, so now when we bring that together, we're going to share the love. So very well, we're going to add some what I call warm seasoning to that. Oh, you're going to have seasoning. What we need in there is that the pan's going to retain all the heat there. Another hot stove. Beautiful. We have a little turmeric, some fresh turmeric inside. Now we have our onions. Do a nice spray. And you can get a nice smell coat that's made amazing. Right. Yeah, wonderful flavor going on there. Carrot. Sweet potato. Sweet potatoes. When it comes to the world, we realize the essence is there. And at a wonderful, time. Yeah. We're gonna add some baby. Now we're gonna add our stock. Our local fish, mai. We're gonna do that mai. We're gonna take what I call non seasoning. A little bit. Take a little Cajun spice. Straight from there. The cayenne. And a touch of curry. Again, of course, we should have been a bit of jerk. Just to put it, jerk doesn't have to be on jerk chicken or jerk fish. You can actually use your curries and your indigenous flavor and combine it to create your own version of it. Now, stir it with the oil. Nice seasoning. Oh, this is our represent. This is really our people. Our broth is, oh my goodness. Again, the smell. What we're going to do now, we're going to have that fish right in that broth. When you come to the islands, you want to experience the fish. What quick correctly means something like a mai. You don't have to do it for too long. You know, while cooking really good nice. Oh man, beautiful. Look at that fish. You're gonna do both there. Folks, come to St. Lucia, you're gonna get a flavor of what we do down here. That is a beautiful broth. Oh, now you see my fish cooking beautiful. Now we're gonna add our spinach. We're gonna add our carrot. We get a beautiful combination. I think we're good to go. Oh yeah, oh yes. Really, we represent on this day, our International Day, International Day, that year, we get in our business. Okay, and we like a big salt pan. I'm not a big salt because it's flavored. My wife that I go into salt. We love salt is easy. I'm all about keeping it real. Okay, let's serve our food now. I think we're good to go. We are definitely going to go. Let us show our best foods. I'll go to bed with the nuts. We take out our compact, we're getting a fish out. Fish out again. Our local fish. Yeah. Then we're going to take we're going to salt the fish. And top. The microwave, just elevated to the cuisine level. There you are, your wonderful roasted breadfruits, served in a wonderful my broth, top with a soft fish and green on a soft fish. Oh, enjoy the love, cook the love.
Thank you, Chef Satchel, for that very educational cooking demonstration. It was very edifying to see your use of locally sourced ingredients in the preparation of this authentic St. Lucian dish. And it looks very tasty. I think everybody is very hungry right now. So I'm sure when people visit St. Lucia, they know where to go to get fine, authentic St. Lucian cuisine. Thank you so much. I now present Chef Swen Swedo from Suriname. Chef Swedo hails from the indigenous village of Whitsanti, not far from Suriname's capital of Paramaribo. Making use of his indigenous heritage and his passion for cooking, Chef Swedo established his own business, utilizing the knowledge gained from his ancestors and authentic ingredients of the land. Chef Swedo has prepared a video of him preparing a traditional Surinamese indigenous dish with translation services provided by Mrs. Annette Sean Seafat. Chef Swedo shares with us his indigenous upbringing, his passion for cooking, and prepares an indigenous dish. Please show the video.
Vertel iets over je herkomst.
Sven Swedo is een inheemse jongman. Ik ben afkomstig uit het dorp Whitsanti. Whitsanti is voordat je Sandre benadert. Heel unieke dorp natuurlijk. En daar ben ik afkomstig. Dat is mijn herkomst.
Waar haal je je inspiratie vandaan om inheemse gerechten te vervaardigen?
Het is namelijk zo, als baby ben ik als het ware in de armen van mijn oma opgegroeid. En zij was dagelijks bezig met peperwater aan het roeren, dus ik was als baby, zij heeft me als het ware grootgebracht. Mijn moeder had het altijd zeg maar druk met werken, dus mijn oma heeft me eigenlijk grootgebracht en vandaar die inspiratie naar peperwater.
Wat heeft jou geïnspireerd om dus inheemse gerechten aan de man te brengen?
Koken was altijd mijn passie, maar ik had het niet zo scherp gezien. Maar ik had zeg maar 2019 twee zware gevallen meegemaakt, waarbij ik mijn zoon en binnen een jaar ook mijn moeder heb verloren. En depressief ben ik eigenlijk, heb ik peperwater erin gevonden om mijn depressie te gaan verwerken. En dat is eigenlijk gebeurd vorig jaar inheemse dag. Dat is eigenlijk mijn inspiratie geweest. Ik heb daar eigenlijk mijn rust gevonden, mijn passie in koken.
En de Surinaamse gemeenschap, hoe hebben ze jouw peperwater passie eigenlijk het gerecht ontvangen en hoe ervaren ze het?
Zeer verrassend. Het is namelijk zo, ik zei het nogmaals, dat ik vorig jaar ben begonnen. Aanstaande woensdag is dat een jaar precies van peperwater passie. Ik heb gewoon een kans genomen. Ik was zwaar depressief had ik op mij. En ik heb mijn partner, hebben dus gewoon een familie van, weet je wat, eenmaal ik van koken hou, laten we het meedoen met inheemse dag. En we hebben meegedacht en als verrassend waren we van een van de eerste die uitgekocht waren.
Oké. Nee, want in mijn zoektocht naar een inheemse chef kwam ik uiteindelijk op jouw naam. En ik weet niet, net als wat ik tegen je zei, van ik heb nog nooit gehoord van een inheemse chef. Dus is er markt voor je product in Suriname?
Ja, dus na inheemse dag heb ik even gecheckt van als ik het goed heb je wekelijks, dagelijks verschillende eetgerechten. Maar peperwater is dat eigenlijk ontbreekt. Ik ben gaan zitten overwegen en ik heb gezegd, ik heb mijn partners hebben dus afgestemd van, weet je wat, we gaan het proberen om wekelijks peperwater aan de gemeenschap te geven. We hebben het geprobeerd en dat is helemaal viraal gegaan.
En jullie zijn elke week dan uitverkocht?
Peperwater is namelijk, je kan hem niet vergelijken met alle respect aan bami, nasi, kan je gewoon bij de winkel pakken, maar dit moet je goede voorbereidingen treffen. Snap je?
Oké.
En goed product natuurlijk, want als je dit even te lang buiten laat, bijvoorbeeld een flesje, wordt die zuur, dus het is even een beetje gevoelig. Maar het is ons gelukt met vallen en opstaan, heel wat tegenslagen, maar desondanks heb ik mijn beste beetje voorgezet om dit alles toch te kunnen realiseren.
Waar komt jouw gerecht origineel vandaan?
Om eerlijk te zijn, ik heb bijna in de meeste dorpen heb ik mijn producten gehaald. En uiteindelijk ben ik beland bij een dame op Bernadorp. Uiteindelijk. Dus we hebben natuurlijk een heel goede communicatie, een heel goede understanding. En vandaar neem ik mijn producten. Ik neem gewoon alles daar. Cassave, kadekra noem met het niet meer kadekra. Cassave water, dus alles neem ik daar vandaan.
Waarom wordt peperwater eigenlijk op deze manier gemaakt?
Peperwater is eigenlijk, peperwater staat centraal. Dit is eigenlijk, ik ben als kleine man als het ware, ik heb bijna elke dag 2 weken lang peperwater gegeten. Dan peperwater met vis of met kip of met wat anders, maar peperwater staat bij de Indianen centraal. En het leukste daarvan is, men staat er niet bewust ervan dat het een gezond product is. Het werkt op iedereen anders. Het is letterlijk plantaardig. Dus niet dat je bijvoorbeeld andere ingrediënten erbij moet toevoegen. Het is letterlijk heel eenvoudig, natuurlijk.
Oké, maar dus de grondstoffen die je gebruikt, die worden dus gehaald uit de natuur?
Alles wordt gehaald uit de natuur. Bijvoorbeeld vis wordt gehaald uit de natuur. Animalen bijvoorbeeld, je hebt nari als vissoorten. In het bos heb je natuurlijk tingo, dat is namelijk bosvarken. Je hebt akira ook erbij, je hebt ook hemeti, dat is haas. En zo heb je verschillende andere inheemse gebruiken, bijvoorbeeld ook apenvlees. Dus alles wordt eigenlijk uit de natuur gehaald.
Er zijn verschillende inheemse stammen in Suriname. Zijn er gelijkenissen in eetgewoontes? Gebruikt iedereen deze peperwater?
Dus de peperwater in Suriname tot zover mijn onderzoek staat centraal. Staat letterlijk bij de Arawak gebruikt peperwater, Caraïb, andere inheemse soorten gebruiken ook gewoon peperwater. Dus het staat centraal.
Oké, maar het wordt allemaal op dezelfde manier gemaakt met dezelfde ingrediënten? Of zeg je dat bijvoorbeeld een andere stam iets anders gebruikt?
Kijk, ik ga je een voorbeeld geven. Even snel naar het begin. Vroeger hadden ze bijvoorbeeld geen gasfornuis. Dus alles werd gewoon met houtskool, faya, weet gemaakt en gekookt. Vroeger was er geen maggi-blok, je had alleen bijvoorbeeld zout en dat. Maar nu, anno 2023, heb je heel veel mogelijkheden. Snap je? Dus je hebt de ene zegt, zij gebruiken alleen zout, omdat het toen alleen zout was. Nog een beetje oud cultuur. Maar wij zijn nog een beetje de next generation, om het zo te zeggen. Ik gebruik natuurlijk zout, maar zo af en toe als het nodig is. Want elk peperwater verschilt. Het verschilt en als het nodig is, gebruik ik misschien een maggi-blokje, maar niet dat ik soepgroente of dergelijke. Het is zout, een beetje maggi-blok En als het echt ook nodig is, een beetje witte suiker. Dat is het enige wat er wordt gebruikt.
Waar en hoe breng je je producten aan de man? De producten aan de man?
Vorig jaar nog had ik dus een gelegenheid gekregen via een inheemse organisatie. En dat was in Wakapassi. Maar ik draaide eigenlijk op verlies. Dus het zag er mooi uit. Het zag er heel goed uit. Maar uiteindelijk heb ik dus besloten van, weet je wat, ik ga dus een stapje terug doen om opnieuw te beginnen. En wat ik nu is gewoon mijn product van huis uit verkopen. En ik heb toch daar meer winsten. Het is een hele zware uitdaging, maar daar heb ik toch meer winsten dan dus waar ik dus was. Maar natuurlijk was ik blij dat ik de gelegenheid heb gekregen om daar mijn naam eigenlijk te drukken. Want om elke week peperwater te voeden aan de gemeenschap is niet makkelijk. Maar we doen ons best. Met alles erop en eraan. Ik heb mijn partner natuurlijk. Soms heb je dagen waarbij je eigenlijk hebt geïnvesteerd. Je hele salaris bij wijze van praten. En je gaat ervan uit, je investeert om winsten te halen. Maar het loopt niet altijd zo. Soms zit het gewoon dan vast. En dan natuurlijk geeft God ons de kracht om dit verder te realiseren.
Dank u wel, Sven. En Sven gaat ons nu meenemen naar de demonstratie voor het bereiden van
We zullen nu peperwater met tingo vandaag klaarmaken en peperwater met animara als vis.
Dank u wel.
Ik werk eigenlijk met die geur. Ik ruik het als er nog gif erin zit, als er nog gif erin zit. Maar waar ik koop, hoe langer hij zit, als je hem laat zitten en je eet hem de volgende dag, hoe lekker het is.
Dat is bruine bonen.
Maar bij vis kan je dat niet doen. Als je vis hebt gekookt, moet je hem gelijk opeten, maar de volgende dag wordt hij pap. Want die gaat niet eten met elkaar.
Kan je het invriezen? Die peperwater?
Je kan hem invriezen. Je kan hem invriezen.
Thank you, Chef Suedo, for showcasing your indigenous culture and heritage. We also thank Mrs. Annette Sean Sifat for assisting with the translation services and subtitles you saw on screen. I thank all of our panelists for their captivating presentations, which truly put into context the theme of our chat and the manner in which indigenous culture is a powerful source and facilitator for cultivating and maintaining ancestral knowledge. From the presentations you saw, it doesn't matter where you're from, if it's Costa Rica or St. Lucia or Jamaica or Suriname or Belize or anywhere else, food is a vital part of our society, our culture, our customs, and it's a really powerful way to preserve who we are as a people. With that said, as we near the end of our program today, it's my distinct honor to welcome Ambassador Francisco Lainez, who is the advisor to the OAS Assistant Secretary General in charge of the coordinating office for the offices and units of the General Secretariat in member states, who will provide closing remarks. Ambassador Lainez, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Kendall, and thanks everyone that made this great week possible. I think everything that we have heard today and everything that has been done during this week has been just incredible. It has given an opportunity for many people to know and to understand the indigenous people much better. And I think if we learn to respect them, to understand them, and to really respect their traditions, we're definitely going to learn a lot from them. So with this, I would like to start and saying that I am very pleased to deliver the closing remarks for today's chat with the OAS. I wish to thank everyone in our virtual audience for joining us today. And I hope that the information shared by our esteemed presenters have enriched your knowledge of traditional indigenous cuisine in our hemisphere. I take this opportunity to thank our distinguished panelists for their insightful presentations. I recognize Mr. Agustin Sutherland, Chief of the Kalingo Tribe of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for his informative overview of the indigenous foods of the Kalingo people and their quest to preserve their heritage and their lands. To Michelle and Suzanne Rousseau, I extend appreciation to both of you for your comprehensive analysis of the culinary history of the indigenous foods in our region. It is incredible what we have been able to hear and everything that we have had the opportunity to learn from y'all. And it's just marvelous that Kendall put all this program together with her team so that it could be shared with everyone that has participated in this chat with the OAS. I also extend heartfelt thanks to our culinary experts, Dra. Leila Garro Valverde of Costa Rica, Chef Orlando Sachel of St. Lucia, and Chef Sven Zvero of Suriname. We thank you for sharing with us your rich indigenous history and culture through your impressive cooking demonstrations. Your thoughtful presentation served as a reminder of the vitality and ubiquity of indigenous traditions across our hemisphere. As the original inhabitants and true guardians of these lands, indigenous people must continue to be recognized along with the myriad customs and traditions which they have imparted to us all. There is no doubt that through our rich cuisine, we are able to preserve our traditional customs and pass to our youth significant ancestral knowledge, which help to strengthen their indigenous identity. As our hemisphere's future leaders, indigenous youth must be empowered to value their heritage and to be emboldened to fight for the issues of concerns to indigenous people. As we close today's event and this commemorative Inter-American Wish, I wish to recognize the Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Ambassador Nestor Mendez, and his team for their tireless work in organizing today's chat and other activities of the week. We need to continue to honor our indigenous people, and we need to recognize their significant contributions to our hemisphere's development. I thank you once again for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next edition of A Chat with the OAS. Kendall, thank you very much for all the support. Technical team, thank you very much for the support. Gloria, the specialist, thank you very much for everything that you have done. And for everyone in the national offices that has made this possible, we really thank you. Muchísimas gracias. Merci beaucoup. Gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador Lainez. Before we close, I just wanted to offer the floor to any of the panelists for for final words, but very short words. Chief Sutherland, starting with you.
It's a pleasure being here with you all. I love it very much, and I hope it won't be the last time. And I learned something from the presenters as well. And that is my peace, and peace be with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. The Rousseau sisters.
It was truly a pleasure. Everybody's presentation was fascinating and interesting and made me want to jump on a plane. So that's nice. Look, thank you all for sharing a bit of your life and your community with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Caribbean has a fascinating history and legacy, and I think more of us should take the time to journey into our culture and the legacy of our culture through food, through the stories, through the ancestors, and explore it. And I think yes, I definitely need to come and visit St. Vincent, and I definitely need to come to Suriname.
And St. Lucia.
And St. Lucia. Again, we've been to St. Lucia before, but thank you so much. It's really been a privilege and an honor for us to participate.
Thank you. It was our privilege to have you here as well. Dra. Garo, would you like to take the floor? I don't see her video. Chef Rolando Satchel, would you like to have some final words?
Okay, first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. You know, all of us need to come together and understand the value of what we do as a people. You know, unity is what we need to do. I'm so keen to, obviously, Jamaican roots and Barbadian roots, but I live in St. Lucia. But I am a Caribbean by heart, and it's really a pleasure to meet everyone there. I would love us to do this together in the restaurants. We come and bring the cuisine to you guys, you know. So, you know, you smell and taste and understand the value of what we do. My mission is to, what I call, I'm a chef on a mission, share the love. It means St. Lucia, STL. But equally, share the love means we the people, by the people, for our indigenous cuisine. And I look forward to meeting you all again at some point. And then keep cooking with love. Food, first rule of kitchen, never cook in a bad mood. Second rule of kitchen, if you're in a bad mood, do takeout. Third rule, salt and pepper is not seasoning. It's seasoning is love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chef Satchel. Dr. Garo, I see you online. Would you have some final words?
Sí, bueno, no, darles las gracias por esta oportunidad y felicitarlos e instarlos a que sigan reforzando todas estas tradiciones de nuestras raíces indígenas, porque es una riqueza que la humanidad no puede perderla. En realidad nos enseñan sostenibilidad, nos enseñan salud, nos enseñan una serie de cosas que tenemos que valorar. Y es a través de oportunidades como esta que es posible. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. And Chef Swift, have any final words?
Okay.
Ja, goeiedag iedereen. Ja, oké. Gaan praten. Ja, ik groet goeiedag vanuit Suriname. Groet ieder. Het was voor mij een eer om het inheemse cultuur van Suriname te presenteren aan jullie.
Greetings from Suriname. It was an honor to present to you for something about the indigenous culture of Suriname.
Ik wil natuurlijk bedanken voor de gelegenheid om natuurlijk het inheemse cultuur te presenteren.
I want to thank you for the honor of being able to present the indigenous culture to you from here.
En ik zie jullie graag heel gauw in Suriname om het peperwatra te proeven van peperwatra basi.
And I invite you all to come to Suriname very quickly to taste the peperwatra of me, the peperwatra basi in Suriname. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chef Suedo and Ms. Annette Chan Sifat for her interpretation. We've come to the end of our chat today. I thank all of the panelists, and the OAS remains committed to promoting the traditions of indigenous peoples of the Americas. To our virtual audience, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to your participation in our next chat with the OAS. Thank you. Our program has ended.